I thought it was just another boring community event until Karen Mitchell marched up to the billionaire's wife and slapped her right across the face. What happened next? Karen went from acting like she owned the town to begging on her knees in handcuffs. Sometimes karma works fast. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. My name is Sarah, and I witnessed something that day that I'll never forget. It happened at the grand opening of the new community center downtown. You know, the one that billionaire Marcus Johnson donated $20 million to build. I was there covering the event for the local newspaper, just trying to do my job and get some good quotes. I should probably tell you a bit about myself first. I'm just a regular journalist, nothing fancy. I drive a 10-year-old Honda, live in a small apartment with my cat Mr. Whiskers, and my biggest excitement usually comes from finding a good story. But that day changed how I see justice, humanity, and the power of consequences. The community center was beautiful, all glass and steel with gardens surrounding it. Marcus Johnson had spared no expense. He stood near the entrance with his wife, Amara, greeting people as they arrived. Now, Amara Johnson was something special. She was elegant, kind, and had this way of making everyone feel important when she talked to them. She'd grown up in the same neighborhood where the community center now stood, and her husband had built it partly as a tribute to her roots. I was taking notes and photos when I noticed Karen Mitchell approaching the entrance. Oh, everyone knew Karen. She was the type of person who complained about everything: the weather, the government, the color of the street lights. She ran the neighborhood watch with an iron fist and had this attitude like the world owed her something. Karen was dressed in what she probably thought was her finest outfit. A bright pink suit that looked like it came from a discount store, with matching pink heels that clicked loudly on the pavement. Her blonde hair was teased up high and she wore too much makeup. But it wasn't her appearance that bothered people, it was her personality. As I watched, Karen marched right up to where Marcus and Amara were greeting guests. I could see the tension building even from where I stood about 20 feet away. Karen had this look on her face, you know, the one, where someone thinks they're about to make a point that will change the world. "Excuse me," Karen said loudly, interrupting Marcus mid-conversation with the mayor. "I have something to say." Marcus, being the gentleman he was, smiled politely. "Of course, ma'am. We're happy you're here for the opening." But Karen wasn't interested in pleasantries. She looked directly at Amara with this disgusted expression and said, "I don't know why everyone's making such a big deal about this place. It's probably just another way for people like her to take advantage of hardworking Americans." The way she said, "her," with such venom, such obvious racial undertones, made my stomach turn. Several people nearby stopped their conversations and turned to look. Amara, ever gracious, just smiled and said, "I hope the center serves the community well. That's all we want." "Don't act all innocent with me," Karen snapped. "I know your type. Coming into our neighborhood acting like you belong here, when you're probably just after the money." Now, here's what made this particularly ridiculous. Amara had grown up 3 blocks from where we were standing. Her grandmother still lived in the house where Amara was raised. Karen, on the other hand, had moved to the area just 5 years ago. Marcus stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Karen cut him off. "I see exactly what's happening here. Your wife thinks she can just waltz in here with her attitude, and everyone should bow down because she married money." The crowd was growing larger now. People were pulling out their phones. I could see the mayor looking uncomfortable, and several community leaders were whispering among themselves. Amara took a deep breath. "Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it? I remember you from the planning meetings. I thought we had some good discussions about the center's programs. Don't you dare patronize me." Karen's voice was getting higher, more shrill. "I've lived here longer than you have, and I won't be talked down to by someone like you." That's when things went from bad to absolutely shocking. Without any warning, Karen raised her hand and slapped Amara across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The entire crowd went silent. I mean dead silent. It was like someone had pressed a mute button on the whole world. Amara stumbled back, her hand going to her cheek, eyes wide with shock. Marcus caught her arm to steady her, and I could see the rage building in his face like a storm cloud. "You did not just do that," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Karen, apparently thinking she'd made some kind of point, stood there with her chin up, looking proud of herself. Maybe now she'll know her place. That's when everything changed. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just pulled out his phone and made a call. "Detective Rivera? This is Marcus Johnson. I need to report an assault that just occurred at the community center opening." "Yes, I'll hold." The color started draining from Karen's face. "Assault? It was just a little slap. Don't be so dramatic. Ma'am, Marcus said, still holding the phone, you just committed assault and battery in front of about 200 witnesses, most of whom are recording this on their phones. I looked around and sure enough, dozens of phones were pointed in Karen's direction. The mayor was shaking his head, and I could see some of the city council members backing away like Karen had some kind of contagious disease. Detective Rivera? Yes, the suspect is still here. Blonde hair, pink suit, about 5'6". The victim is my wife, Amara Johnson. That's when reality hit Karen like a freight train. Her face went from smug to panicked in about 2 seconds. Wait. Let's not make a big deal out of this. It was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Amara finally spoke, her voice steady despite the red mark on her cheek. You slapped me and told me to know my place. What exactly did I misunderstand? The crowd was getting restless now. People were angry, not at Amara but at Karen. I heard someone shout, "That's Mrs. Johnson. She grew up here." Another voice called out, "Karen's the outsider. She just moved here." Marcus was still on the phone. Yes, detective, we'll need the security footage as well. The community center has cameras covering the entrance. Karen's face went white. Security cameras? Oh yes, Marcus said, hanging up. High definition. Multiple angles. The whole incident is recorded. Now Karen was starting to panic for real. She looked around at all the faces staring at her, all the phones recording, and you could see the wheels turning in her head. She was finally realizing what she'd done. Look, maybe we can work this out privately, she said, her voice getting desperate. I'm sorry if I overreacted. I've been under a lot of stress lately. Stress doesn't excuse assault, Marcus replied calmly. And this wasn't private. You chose to do this in public in front of hundreds of people. That's when Karen made her biggest mistake. Instead of just apologizing sincerely and hoping for mercy, she tried to play the victim. This is reverse discrimination, she shouted. You're only pressing charges because I'm white. This is America. I have rights. The crowd actually gasped. I mean, people literally gasped out loud. Even I couldn't believe she just said that. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. Ma'am, you're right. This is America. And in America, you can't assault someone because of their race and then claim to be the victim when there are consequences. The police arrived about 5 minutes later, Detective Rivera and 2 other officers. Karen immediately started talking to them, trying to explain how it was all a big misunderstanding, how she was the real victim here, how she was being targeted for being white. Detective Rivera, a patient Hispanic woman in her 40s, listened politely while looking at the red mark on Amara's face and watching the security footage on Marcus's phone. Ma'am, she finally said to Karen, I need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back. What? I told you it was just a misunderstanding. You're under arrest for assault and battery. You have the right to remain silent. As Detective Rivera read Karen her rights, Karen's whole demeanor changed. The arrogance was gone. The smugness had vanished. Suddenly she was scared and desperate. Wait, she cried as the handcuffs clicked into place. Can't we talk about this? I'll apologize. I'll make it right. But it was too late. The officer started walking her toward the patrol car, and Karen began to panic. Please, she called over her shoulder to Marcus and Amara. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was having a bad day. Please don't press charges. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Karen was put into the back of the police car. Some people were recording everything, others were just shaking their heads in disbelief. After the police left, Marcus addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry you had to witness that. But I want to be clear, this community center is for everyone regardless of race, religion, or background. What you just saw is exactly the kind of behavior we're trying to move past. The crowd applauded, and slowly people began to move into the building for the actual opening ceremony. But the story was far from over. Over the next few days, the video of Karen slapping Amara and then getting arrested went viral. I mean viral, millions of views across all the social media platforms. People were calling it Karen Gate, and the slap heard round the internet. But here's where it gets really interesting. As the story spread, people started digging into Karen's background. Turns out, she had a history of this kind of behavior. 3 different retail workers came forward with stories of Karen berating them. 2 restaurant managers shared security footage of Karen screaming at servers. A grocery store clerk posted about how Karen had called him racial slurs over a coupon dispute. The neighborhood watch group she led? They voted her out unanimously and issued a public statement condemning her actions. The homeowners association she was part of? They removed her from the board and banned her from future meetings. Her employer, a local insurance company, saw the video and fired her the next day. "We cannot have someone representing our company who displays such behavior," their statement read. But the real consequences came when Karen went to court. She'd hired a lawyer, some guy who specialized in getting people out of assault charges. He tried to argue that it was just a minor altercation, and that Karen had learned her lesson. He suggested community service and anger management classes. That's when Marcus stood up. "Your Honor," he said, "I'd like to address the court." Marcus talked about how this wasn't just about one slap. It was about the message it sent, that some people think they can assault others based on race and face no real consequences. He talked about how Amara had dedicated her life to community service, how she'd grown up in poverty in this very neighborhood and worked her way through college. He talked about how they donated millions to help the community, only to have Amara attacked by someone who'd lived there for just 5 years. Then Amara spoke. "Your Honor," she said, "I don't want revenge. But I do want justice. And justice means acknowledging that what happened to me was wrong, and making sure it doesn't happen to someone else." The judge, an elderly African-American woman who'd clearly seen her share of cases like this, looked at Karen for a long moment. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, "you committed assault in broad daylight in front of hundreds of witnesses, and it was captured on multiple cameras. But more than that, your actions and words showed a clear racial motivation. This court takes hate crimes very seriously." Karen started crying. "Please, Your Honor, I've already lost my job, my position in the community. Haven't I been punished enough?" "Those were consequences of your actions," the judge replied. "This is your legal punishment." She sentenced Karen to 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, specifically at organizations serving communities of color, mandatory anger management classes, and a $5,000 fine to be donated to the community center. As Karen was led away in handcuffs again, she finally broke down completely. "I'm sorry," she sobbed to Marcus and Amara. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." But here's the thing about apologies, they have to come from a place of genuine understanding, not just regret at getting caught. 3 months into her jail sentence, Karen wrote a letter to Marcus and Amara. I got to read it because they decided to make it public. In it, she talked about how the anger management classes and her time in jail had made her realize how much her prejudices had poisoned her thinking. She talked about how she'd grown up in a household where racist attitudes were normalized, and how she'd never really examined those beliefs until she faced real consequences for them. The letter was different from her courtroom tears. It was thoughtful, introspective, and seemed genuine. When Karen was released, she moved away from town. But before she left, she did something unexpected. She came to the community center and asked to speak with Amara. I happened to be there that day working on a follow-up story. Karen looked different, humbler, smaller somehow. The arrogance was gone. "Mrs. Johnson," she said, "I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did to you. It wasn't just a slap. It was an attack on your dignity, your right to exist in your own community. I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it, but I am sorry. Truly sorry." Amara looked at her for a long moment. "I appreciate you saying that, Karen. I hope you found some peace." "I'm trying to," Karen replied. "I'm moving to another state, starting over. I'm going to keep working with the counselor, keep trying to be better." After Karen left, I asked Amara how she felt about the encounter. "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting," she said. "But I believe people can change if they're willing to do the hard work." I hope she really has learned something. The community center, by the way, became hugely successful. It serves over 3,000 people a year with job training, after-school programs, senior services, and health clinics. Amara runs a scholarship program there that has helped 50 local kids go to college. The whole incident, as terrible as it was, ended up bringing the community together. People talked about racism more openly. The town started having regular community dialogues about bias and inclusion. Several other wealthy families stepped up to fund similar programs in other neighborhoods. As for me, covering this story changed how I think about justice. I used to think justice was just about punishment. You do something wrong, you get punished, end of story. But real justice is more complicated. It's about consequences, yes, but also about education, redemption, and making sure the same harm doesn't happen to others. Karen faced real consequences for her actions, legal, social, and financial. But the story didn't end with her punishment. It ended with a community becoming stronger, with important conversations happening, and with one woman, hopefully, becoming a better person. I still see Marcus and Amara around town sometimes. They're still doing good work, still making the community better. Amara still has grace and dignity, and she never let Karen's hatred diminish her light. The whole experience taught me something important. Actions have consequences, but how we handle those consequences, both as individuals and as a community, it determines what kind of society we build together. And sometimes justice isn't just about punishment. Sometimes it's about transformation. But I'll tell you this much, nobody in our town has ever made the mistake of thinking they can assault someone and get away with it. That video is still out there, still being shared, still serving as a reminder that in the age of smartphones and social media, your worst moments can become very public very quickly. The moral of the story? Treat people with respect and dignity. Think before you act. And remember that in our interconnected world, there's no such thing as consequences that stay private anymore. Karen learned that lesson the hard way. I just hope others can learn it without having to go through what she did, or without putting someone else through what Amara experienced. Because at the end of the day, we all have a choice. We can build each other up or we can tear each other down. The consequences of that choice are more real and more immediate than ever before.